She picked up her suitcase, walked past him, and opened the front door. "Clara." She stopped. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said. She walked out into the rain. Daniel Mercer had grown up with very little. His mother worked double shifts at a hospital laundry. His father had left when Daniel was 6. They lived in a small house in a quiet town outside of Pittsburgh, the kind of town where people knew each other's names but not each other's struggles. Daniel was a quiet boy. He read everything he could find. Old encyclopedias. Broken library books. Whatever the neighbors threw away. He had a mind that was always working, always asking questions, always pulling things apart just to understand how they fit together. By the time he was 16, he was fixing cars in a neighbor's driveway on weekends just to help his mother pay bills. He was good at it. His hands knew what to do even when the instructions weren't clear. He got a partial scholarship to study mechanical engineering. But after 2 years, his mother got sick, and he came home. He never went back. He didn't talk about this often. Not because he was ashamed, but because he had made peace with his choices. His mother had needed him. That was enough. When he met Clara at a mutual friend's birthday party, he was 28. He was working at an auto repair garage. She was finishing a business degree. She was bright and funny and full of plans. He fell in love with her quickly and quietly, the way he did most things. Clara Brooks had always known what she wanted. A good life. Not extravagant. But stable. Comfortable. The kind of life where you didn't panic when the car made a strange noise or when a bill arrived unexpectedly. Her parents had struggled when she was young. Her father lost his job twice before she turned 12. She remembered those years. The tight faces at the dinner table. The whispered arguments. The silence that filled rooms when money was the problem no one wanted to name. She had promised herself she would never live that way. Daniel was kind. He was honest. He made her laugh in a way no one else had. She loved him, she really did. But love, she told herself, doesn't pay rent. The 2 years they were together had been full of warmth, but also full of worry. Daniel worked hard, but the garage didn't pay well. He never complained. He always found a way to make their small apartment feel like a home, cooking meals from almost nothing, fixing everything that broke, filling quiet evenings with conversation and old records playing softly in the background. But Clara wanted more. She had been offered a job in Chicago at a growing company. A real salary. A real start. And she had started to feel that staying in that small life with Daniel was pulling her backward. So she left. And she told herself she had made the right choice. Chicago was everything Clara had hoped it would be. The job was fast and exciting. Her apartment, though small, was in a nice neighborhood. She made new friends. She went to dinners and rooftop events. She dressed well and spoke confidently and built herself exactly the kind of life she had always imagined. But there were nights, quiet Tuesday nights, mostly, when she thought about Daniel. She thought about the way he hummed while he cooked. About how he always held doors open, not because it was expected, but because it was simply who he was. About the time she had been sick with a fever for 3 days and he had barely slept, checking on her every hour, leaving cold water and warm soup within reach. She pushed those thoughts away. Nostalgia, she told herself. Just nostalgia. She started dating again after 6 months. Nice men. Successful men. Men with clean apartments and good restaurants and confident futures. But none of them made her feel the way Daniel had. One of them, a man named Greg, took her to expensive places and talked mostly about himself. Another, named Marcus, was kind but distant, always looking at his phone, always half present. She tried. She genuinely tried. But something was missing. And deep in a place she didn't like to visit, she knew what it was. Back in Pittsburgh, Daniel's life had changed, though no one around him knew just how much. 3 months after Clara left, a former professor had reached out to him. The professor was now consulting for a private engineering firm. He had remembered Daniel's work from his 2 college years, specifically a paper Daniel had written about fuel efficiency systems. The professor had never forgotten it. The firm was working on a project. They needed someone with practical experience and a specific kind of thinking. Would Daniel be interested in a short consulting role? Daniel said yes. The short consulting role became a larger one. His ideas were different from the other engineers, shaped not by textbooks alone but by years of working with real machines, real problems, real failures. He solved things quickly. He thought in ways the others didn't. Within a year, he had been offered a full position. Then a lead role. Then, when the firm was absorbed by a larger tech engineering company expanding into green energy, Daniel was brought along as a senior design engineer. He moved to a modest apartment in Philadelphia. He didn't buy expensive things. He didn't change how he dressed, not much. He still cooked his own meals. Still listened to old records. But he was, quietly and without announcement, building something real. Clara heard about Daniel by accident. She was at a conference in Boston, a business and innovation summit her company had sent her to. She was standing near a display screen showing profiles of keynote speakers when a name stopped her cold. Daniel Mercer. Lead design engineer, Halcyon Energy. Pioneer of the Mercerflex fuel system, currently used in transit networks across 4 countries. She stared at the photo. It was him. Older by a few years. A little more settled in the face. But unmistakably him. She stood there for a long moment while people moved around her. That evening, she looked him up properly. The articles were real. The work was real. He had helped design a fuel compression system that was now saving millions of dollars in public transport costs across the US, UK, and parts of Europe. There were interviews. Quiet, thoughtful interviews where he spoke about engineering the way he used to speak about everything, carefully, with deep care. One interviewer had asked him how he'd stayed motivated through difficult years. Daniel had said, "I just kept showing up. That's all. You keep showing up, and eventually the work starts to speak." Clara read that line twice. She closed her laptop and sat in the silence of her hotel room for a long time. She reached out to him through his company's professional profile page. She kept the message short. "Hi Daniel. I saw you at the summit today, well, your photo at least. I just wanted to say congratulations. Truly. I hope you're well. Clara." She wasn't sure he would reply. He did, 2 days later. "Hello, Clara. Thank you. I hope Chicago is treating you well. It looks like it is. Daniel." That was all. Polite. Warm. Closed. She wrote back. She asked if he ever came to Chicago. He said he did, occasionally, for work. She asked if he'd want to meet for coffee sometime. There was a longer pause this time, for days, before he replied. "I think that could be all right. I'll let you know when I'm next in the city." 3 weeks later, he was. They met at a small coffee place near the river. He was dressed simply, a dark jacket, clean jeans. He looked well. Not flashy. Just settled, in a way that felt earned. Clara had rehearsed things to say. When she saw him, she forgot all of them. "You look the same," she said. "You look like Chicago agrees with you," he replied, and smiled. They talked for 2 hours. Carefully at first, then more easily. It felt familiar in a way that made her chest ache. She told him the truth over that coffee, or as much of it as she could carry. "I've thought about you," she said. "More than I expected to. Daniel held his cup with both hands. He looked at her steadily. I thought about you too. For a while. Daniel, she stopped. I think I made a mistake. Leaving the way I did. Saying what I said. He didn't rush to respond. That was always his way. You said what you believed at the time, he said. I understood it. I didn't agree with it, but I understood it. That's very generous, she said quietly. It's just honest, he replied. She looked at him. Is there any chance? He set his cup down gently. And his expression was kind, but clear. Clara, he said, I never stopped caring about you. I want to be honest about that. But I also spent a long time after you left asking myself hard questions. And what I found was that I needed to be with someone who believed in me before the proof arrived. Not after. The words landed softly, but they were solid as stone. You left because I was poor, he said. Not because I was unkind, or dishonest, or wrong for you. Just because I didn't have enough money yet. And I understand that. I do. But I can't build something with someone who needed to see my success before they could see my worth. Clara felt the truth of it move through her like a cold wave. She didn't argue. There was nothing to argue. She cried on the walk back to her apartment. Not dramatically. Just quietly, the way you cry when the grief is mostly your own fault. She wasn't crying because Daniel had said something cruel. He hadn't. He had been gentler with her than she deserved. She was crying because he was right. Because somewhere deep inside her, she had always known it. She thought about the small apartment they had shared. About how he had made it feel like enough. About how she had looked at that life and seen only what was missing instead of everything that was there. She had been so afraid of repeating her parents' story that she had run from a man who, she now understood, would never have let her fall. Not because of money. But because of who he was. The weeks after that coffee were quiet ones. She worked. She walked. She was honest with herself in ways she had avoided for a long time. She called her mother one evening and told her the whole story. Her mother listened without interrupting. When Clara finished, her mother said, "Baby, money was always our problem. But it was never your father's character. Don't mix the two things up." Clara had never thought about it that way. Her father, even through the hardest years, had never left. Had never been unkind. Had never stopped showing up. Just like Daniel. She didn't call Daniel again. She respected what he had said, and she respected him too much to push against a door he had gently but firmly closed. But something had shifted in her, permanently. She stopped measuring people by what they had and started paying attention to who they were. She became more patient. More honest. Less afraid. She let go of the version of safety she had built in her mind, the one made of salaries and zip codes, and started looking for something more real. 2 years later, she met someone. A quiet man named Owen who worked as a high school science teacher. He wasn't rich. But he was steady, and kind, and he made her feel like the world made sense when he was in the room. She didn't hesitate this time. As for Daniel, she heard through a mutual friend that he had gotten married. A woman named Priya, who had apparently been his colleague for years. Someone who had known him before the job title, before the articles, before the recognition. Someone who had seen the still water and understood it held something deep. Clara smiled when she heard that. It was a genuine smile. She had lost something real, and she had learned something real, and somehow those two things together had made her into someone better. Some lessons don't come easy. Some truths only arrive after the door has already closed. But if you're brave enough to sit with what you lost and honest enough to ask why, even the most painful endings can become the beginning of something worthy. And that, in the end, was enough.